So here are some of the topics that I'm going to be covering in this video, which is all points that I've seen these street corner camps make. First is the Caucasian Neanderthal DNA. I'm going to be looking into who were the Neanderthals actually. Is there any correlation between Neanderthal DNA and Nephilim Watchers, fallen seed? And we're going to look into characteristics of the Neanderthals, how they lived, what they looked like, body features, compare that to modern humans around the world. And then we're also going to look at what the Bible tells us the offspring of the Nephilim look like, fallen seed. And we're going to see if the Neanderthals are comparable or applicable to what the scripture tells us fallen seed looks like. So first off, I'd like to start off with the Neanderthals, because this is the bulk of what their doctrine is based on. They are taking claims from evolutionary scientists, which is kind of interesting because evolution is strictly contrary to the truth of the Most High Yah. But to demonize and keep another people out of the kingdom who they hate, they're willing to go to Satan to hurt somebody who they don't like. But we're looking at the jawbone of a Neanderthal right now. And one thing that is very interesting about this jawbone is it looks entirely human. Only difference being that the bones are thicker and of a better quality, really, which we will discuss that later on. But if you look at these teeth, they look like human teeth. I mean, you look at these, I'm not no dentist, but you look at these back molars, and as a black man, these look like my teeth. They really do naturally, not to crack jokes, but mine are a lot more yellow than these with the Doritos I be eating. But you can see that these are not some vampire wolf-like dagger-looking teeth. And it's also very important to note that they are 16 teeth on each row. That is the same number of teeth that humans today have. So not only are the teeth human in appearance, but they also are in a correct number as well as location. One thing I would like to mention is that there have been articles throughout the years of giants who we know the Nephilim, some people call them, were giants, which we'll get into that a little bit later. I don't want to spoil nothing. But there's been reports of the skeletons of giants being found, and they had 2 rows of teeth, kind of like a shark. There would be a completely another row of teeth right behind them. So, as you can see on this Neanderthal, we only have 1 row of teeth. There's not a perfect second layer going around like some type of shark type of thing. But now I want to look at the hand bones of the Neanderthal, because the hands are going to tell us a lot. So next up, we're going to be looking at hands as well as feet. Now, why is this important? Because Goliath, we know Goliath was the giant, the Nephilim, that King David fought and defeated in the Bible. Now, Samuel chapter 21, verse 20 through 21 states that Goliath had 6 fingers on his hands as well as 6 toes. Now, we have the modern human right over here. Let's just call this, 2006 FedEx driver. And then we have the Neanderthal right here. Now, once again, the Neanderthal looks identical to human except for better bone structure. It's not something completely different, which we will talk about the Nephilim and how different, how much, all of the, animal-like mutations that the Nephilim had and their offspring continues to have up until this day. But when we look at the Neanderthals, it is human-like structure with better materials. Just imagine you're building a brick house today versus you building a brick house in the old days. In the old days, you can have better supplies. You're using the same blueprint that the people are today, but the house is different in the sense that you had better supplies. So this is just like that house analogy. And as you can see, the Neanderthal has 5 fingers, and the human has 5 fingers. So that's something very interesting to note because we already know what Samuel chapter 21 verse 20 said. Okay, now we're going to look at foot bones. Yeah, good old foot bones. So on the left, we have the Neanderthal, and on the right, we have our 2006 FedEx driver, or based on your preference, UPS, Postal Service, not Amazon, because I don't think Amazon deliveries are even a thing in '06, but that's not the point. So right over here on the left, we have the Neanderthal foot. And once again, on the Neanderthal foot, we have 5 toes. And on the right, we have the modern human foot, which has 5 toes as well. And when we look into the joints and the bones that connect the toes to like the part where the foot is, you can see that the structure is very similar as well. I don't really know how to explain it without sounding cringe, but you see like those chicken nugget looking pieces right there that hold the toes on. And then we go over to the modern human and we can see the little chicken nugget pieces as well. But once again, the only difference is with the Neanderthal, it looks like it has better craftsmanship, the connections. On the modern human, it looks kind of a bit bulged together. And then we look back at maybe that's the ankle. Once again, I'm not a doctor, but the big fat part on the back, we understand terms like fat, small, little, big. So the fat part on the back of the foot of the Neanderthal is a bit bigger than on the modern human. But once again, it's not something creepily new. Like this is not some sus new animal-like thing. We can see the similarities in how these bones are built. And once again, there's no 6 toes on the Neanderthal, like we found out that the descendants of the Nephilim, the Watchers, fallen seed, actually had in real life. So once again, that's another look at the Neanderthals and them being human. Okay, now we're going to be dealing with the height of the Neanderthals. So right here in this photo, we have some white dudes with their Neanderthal ancestor. And one thing that you notice right off the bat is that the Neanderthal is very small, like very noticeably small in height and in size as well. And I have some documents right here where it states that the average height of the Neanderthal man was 5'6". And as for the average height of the Neanderthal woman, it was smaller than the man, naturally, but significantly smaller, because I have seen documents and estimates where Neanderthal women were actually in the 4-foot range, some in 4'8", some 4'7", not even in the 5-foot spectrum. Now, we know that the descendants of the Watchers, the fallen seed, were giants and were significantly larger than humans. They were huge. But when you look into the Neanderthals, once again, they're not fitting the template and the description that the Bible gives us of the fallen seed, Nephilim beasts, because they are small. And when you look at it today, humans are significantly bigger than their ancestors. And we have just gotten bigger over time. And you can do your history and just look at some of the old draft sheets from World War I and World War II. And you'll realize how you won't be able to find a man that's 6 foot anything on those old charts. But you look at modern military documents and you'll see 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". And then you look at the NFL and you see guys who are like 6'8". Really tall football players. This was not something that was happening even 50 years ago. So you turn the clock back to Tower of Babel time period 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, and this is what you get. These skeletons are the oldest skeletons of, the so-called, white people, and look how small they are. But now I'm going to move on to something else that is very important before we start discussing about what the fallen seed looked like and some other things of that nature. Now, this one is going to be a huge bombshell because this is something that has been covered up by evolutionary scientists for decades, almost 2 centuries now. And that is the Neanderthal the ancestor of white people, was not some ape-like beast. He was simply a man of color. Now, if you look at this older depiction of a Neanderthal, he looks just like a black man who has straight hair and blue eyes. Now, I've done lots of reading on this subject, and I wish I had the papers with me, but this is why, kids, adults too, always save your research. There's been multiple people throughout history, back before evolution really took hold on our society, and they referred to the Neanderthals as being Negro, meaning black person who is not a descendant of Ham. And this old depiction of a Neanderthal very much explains that. And one thing that I want to get across is that all humans descend from Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve were people of color. And one thing I'm going to prove a little bit later is that all of these so-called exclusive features that we, associate with being white-only features can be found inside black people. And we know Adam and Eve were people of color, and black people have the genes in their DNA to create the features that white people have. Now, we know stuff like the sirens, the mermaids, the giants, people with horns, half donkey, half horse. This is stuff that the Book of Enoch tells us about. But these aren't things that you find in modern humans. But everything you find in the so-called white race originated with black people. So that just proves Adam and Eve to be true. Now let's keep looking more about this. Another thing I heard them mention is they mention, in the Book of Enoch, I think it was, where it talks about Noah's eyes were yellow. And they like to twist that and say that white people are the only ones with colorful eyes, and black people don't have colorful eyes, and Adam and Eve being black, which means white people are fallen seed. But once again, that is a doctrine of devils once again, because black people have been known to have blue and green eyes, two things that are famous with white people. So once again, we've learned that white people have blue eyes and green eyes, and they have blonde hair, and both of those things can be inherited, or not can be, they are inherited from black people. These are things that you get from black people, Adam and Eve. So it just proves even more Adam and Eve to be true and evolution to be false. And one thing that's also been swept under the rug in history is not only do white people have features that are seen in black people, but white people can show features that black people have. Now, this is something called moss hair, I believe it was called. And there was a people, specifically women, of the Caucasus Mountains, that's something that you hear these camps bring up a lot, who have afros like a black woman. Now, if you paint her face brown, she's going to be looking like an African or Israelite or some other melanated person. So she already has black features, and she is as far north as it really gets. You could probably go farther north than that, but she is a European white woman with a fluffy afro, and this is not the only instance of this. Once again, another one of these Caucasian women. So these white women are able to genetically have hair like a black woman. That just proves descent from a darker race of people, Adam and Eve, even more. Because how would this even be possible? A donkey can't develop features from a mouse. A cat can't develop features from an elephant. But yet you have, throughout history, white people who have features from black people. Humans. We're human. They're human. Let's continue on with this thing.